The archetype we're talking about today could have been the best one in the game, one of the best in fact, but some poor design choices made it one of the worst ones in the game. Reactors. This archetype was used by Bomber in 5Ds, and they focus on a very, well, it's not a very interesting game mechanic, but a pretty brutal one at that, and that is destroying cards immediately upon activation and burn damage. So yeah, let's go take a look at this archetype. It's 7 cards long, and it's bound to produce some relevant outcome in the end. So first off, we have their first monster, Spell Reactor RE. It's a level 3 machine with 1200 attack and 900 defense. And once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell card, you can destroy the spell card and inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Now the main problem I have with this is because is the fact that this thing does not negate the activation of whatever it destroys. So unless you're going up against a deck which thrives on continuous spell cards, this guy isn't gonna do much. So yeah, this card can be a genuine tech choice and a threat to a lot of pendulum decks, which have fallen out of relevance ever since the arrival of Master Rule 5. So yeah, a very limited usage, and about the same can be said about Trap Reactor Wi-Fi. Yeah, that's how you're supposed to pronounce this. And it has the exact same effect, but only for trap cards. And it's a level 4 with 800 attack and 1800 defense, and it's a dark machine, so this one has also applications in the archetype, since you can run it because of its type and level, meaning it's a target for Black Salvo to pick up after it's been inevitably sent to the graveyard. So yeah, off to a okay-ish start, but it's not gonna get any more better than this, because next up we have Summon Reactor.SK. It's a level 5 this time, with 2000 attack and 1400 defense, and the first time a monster is summoned to your opponent's side of the field, each turn inflict 800 damage to your opponent. During the battle phase of this turn, this effect is activated. You can negate the attack of one monster your opponent controls. Okay, so let's get the obvious out of the way. The main problem this card has is that it's a level 5 in an archetype that has no way of generating tribute fodder, meaning you have to use some other stuff like Monarch Stormforth or one of the archetypal cards we'll get to soon in order to bring it out. And not to mention that, unlike its spell and trap counterpart, it does not destroy anything, but even if it did, I wouldn't consider it anything too amazing, even for the time. But yeah, I'm surprised why this effect wasn't literally Tech Genus Halberd Cannon's effect, but with the added burn damage, because I would have actually thought of that to be quite formidable, honestly, because a negated summon and some burn damage once per turn, yeah, that can actually disrupt quite a few decks. But as it is now, it's nothing too amazing, but you run it because you literally have to, because this thing has a second effect which I haven't read out just yet, and that is that you can send one face-up Trap Reactor Wi-Fi, one face-up Spell Reactor RE, and this face-up card to the graveyard, and to special summon one Flying Fortress Skyfire from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And what does Flying Fortress Skyfire do? Well, Flying Fortress Skyfire is their last main deck monster and their first boss monster. It's a level 8 with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, and it cannot be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned by the effect of Summon Reactor.SK. Once per turn, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard in order to destroy one card your opponent controls. And once per turn, and during your opponent's each of your opponent's turns, when you activate, you can activate one of these effects. When your opponent normal or special summons a monster, destroy it and inflict 800 damage to your opponent. And when your opponent sets a card, destroy it and inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Well, obviously we're going to be using the first effect more often, because destroying set cards, well, in this form, this kind of effect is actually quite nice, but preventing the summons of some other bigger monsters, which can easily get rid of it either by effect destruction or by simply running over it. Although this card does have 3000 attacks, so it is safe from most battle destruction effects. So yeah, destroying monsters here is a bit more valuable. However, do make sure that you have some back row removal on standby, because the fact that you cannot use the second effect on the same turn as the first effect is a very big downside here. So yeah, be sure to have some secondary removal available. Yeah, basically this thing's first effect is actually quite enough to get rid of the thing you did not decide to pop with this with the secondary effect that activates on the opponent's turn. However, again, this thing is also very flimsy in terms of its own protection, as it can easily die to about any kind of removal, and not to mention that the effects could have been better. They could have at least allowed you to use both of the secondary effects in the same turn. But if you ask me, they should have simply stacked the effect of the first three reactors and just give them negation, or increase, or basically choose which one to activate at during each turn, because that would have been actually very formidable boss design back in the day. However, as it is now, you run it because you simply don't have any bigger beat sticks. Alright, let's move on to the extra deck. First of which, we start off with a monster that was very famous for a long time, because it was both banned and limited for quite some time, and that is Dark Strike Fighter. It's a level 7 synchro monster, a generic one, which requires any tuner when any non-tuner, and during your main phase 1 you can tribute one monster to inflict damage to your opponent equal to the tributed monster's level on the field times 200. You can only use this effect of Dark Strike Fighter once per turn. And yeah, obviously the errata of this card, before the errata, this card was not limited to a main phase 1, and it was not a once per turn. So basically, what people would do is that they would attack with all of their monsters, cause some considerable damage, and then use Dark Strike Fighter's effect to tribute all of their monsters to finish their opponent off. And now with this kind of effect, that is no longer the case, but Dark Strike Fighter still finds the occasional extra deck spot in an archetype that loves to have their monsters tributed or be sent to the graveyard, so Dark Strike Fighter can compensate for all the tributing going on by providing us some nice burn damage as well. And their final monster is their level 8 synchro monster, Dark FLATTOP. It's a level 8 with 0 attack and 3000 defense, requires a Dark Tuner and one or more non-tuner machine monsters, and once per turn you can target one Reactor monster or Flying Fortress Skyfire in your graveyard, special summon that target, ignoring its summoning conditions. If this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a level 5 or lower machine type monster from your hand. Okay, there's quite a bit to unpack here. First of all, the fact that this thing is a level 8 monster is a very big downside, since it's a very uncomfortable level for this archetype, unless you run some level 1 tuners, which you can then use Dark Strike Fighter to go into this thing. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2, the first effect actually seems very amazing at first, but first of all, it's limited to only the graveyard, and you cannot bring out Skyfire the way you think. You'd think that you can just simply activate Foolish Burial and send Flying Fortress Skyfire directly to the graveyard, and then use this thing to instantly revive it. And yeah, that would have actually been very formidable, and it would actually enable some niche rank 8 plays in this archetype. But the rulings state that the Flying Fortress Skyfire needs to be properly special summoned first with its own effect, and then it can be revived like this, kind of like the way they screwed over the level modulation card, which could have seen play due to how it was supposed to function, but the way that the rulings say it does not, and the same goes for this thing. And yeah, they don't even get me started on the second effect. It allows you to bring out any level 5 or lower machine type monster, but it's only from the hand. So yeah, it's unless you're using this to bring out some never before seen Cyber Dragon support or any other thing that relies on level 5 machines, yeah, don't even bother with this. If you run this, it's probably at not more than 1. And their final card is the trap card Fake Explosion. Activate only when an opponent's monster declares an attack. Monsters cannot be destroyed by this battle, and after the damage calculation, special summon one Summon Reactor.SK from your hand or graveyard. Yeah, this is one of those cards that I mentioned that it was specifically made for bringing out Summon Reactor.SK, and you can even see that when you see the anime version of this card, because the anime version has the exact same effect, but it's not limited to Summon Reactor.SK. It was any level 5 monster, so yeah, kind of funny how they retroactively made this card into a reactor support card, because bringing out Summon Reactor.SK was just a huge pain in the ass. And not to mention that the anime was also aware of this crap, and they made Bomber run Star Explosion or Star Change, something like that. Basically the card that allows you to pay multiples of 500 life points to reduce the level of the monster in your hand or field by that many levels of how many multiples of 500 you've paid. So yeah, bringing out Summon Reactor is a monumental task in this archetype, even Skyfire. So yeah, you basically run this at 2 at minimum, because you have to, and you have to find a coherent way to bring out Summon Reactor, and you have to protect your monsters from fighting if you want to bring out Skyfire. Now time for the grading scale. In terms of consistency, well, they can use some generic machine searches such as the Symphonic Warrior engine to give them some synchro access in terms of their playability, but even that is not enough for their internal bad consistency, which is practically non-existent, so I'll be giving them a 1 out of 3 here. In terms of power, the only legitimate threat here is Skyfire, which rarely sees the light of day, so that's also 1 out of 3 there. In terms of comeback ability, you can the only sense of a comeback here is Black Salvo into Dark Strike Fighter or any level 7 Synchro monster, and that's about it. So nothing too amazing here, and that's a 1 out of 3. In terms of protection, it's also not existent, since none of their monsters have any negation slapped onto their effects, so that is the most irrelevant 1 out of 3 I've ever gotten an archetype here. And as for the versatility, well, some decks are very vulnerable to Spell Reactor RE and Flying Fortress Skyfire if it ever hits the field. Dark Strike Fighter used to be a beast in the day, but the keyword here is back in the day, so it's about as relevant as a broken condom, so 1 out of 3 here as well. Yeah, very disappointing here, because honestly this archetype could have rose up to be something truly amazing if they actually gave, if the only change they had is gave the main reactor's negation. I could have actually seen them as a slightly better archetype, because the main deck monsters, which can basically negate any type of card, is simply a very strong and versatile ability to have. And if the reactors are ever brought back into relevance, I would actually love to see what they do to make them more competitive, or if they give all of the old cards some retrains in order to effectively replace the old ones. Because yeah, I'm actually a big fan of control-oriented decks, and reactors proved to be a nice concept for one of them. So it would be definitely lovely to see them brought back to relevance, since yeah, like I said, I really love control decks. Control and beatdown decks, those are the basically my two favorites, next to extenders, of course. Anyway, yeah, that basically does it for this archetype analysis. Stay tuned next time. I think the next one is also a 5Ds archetype. Oh no, it's a GX era archetype, so we're going backwards yet again. And oh boy, the GX one is gonna be... It's not gonna be pretty too, but hey. We tried to salvage this game state from the bottom of the barrel, so yeah, let's see if they've improved with the release of the new mechanics and new rulings and the new Master Rule 5, whatever. Let's see if they've aged poorly or aged gracefully. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. As usual, I'll upload the next part whenever I can. Be sure to check out my Patreon when you got the time. Maybe drop a few donations if you feel like it. And I'll see you all and have a good day. Peace.